All right, so today we're finishing the one, well, not finishing because we're gonna have to finish it tomorrow. But we are working on solving absolute value equations and inequalities. So this is our last lesson of topic 1, and then you're testing like basically Wednesday through Friday. And I'll explain how that works. All right, but this is the last lesson of the topic. Do use the success criteria as your study guide. I think it makes more sense to go over it after the lesson, so I will. But just know, like, these are the things we're covering. This is what you need to be able to do for this lesson. I am recording now. I'll post it by this afternoon. So if you've been absent, make sure you're watching the videos for the days that you missed. Some people were absent for a really long time. Make sure that you're watching all those lessons, or taking notes, or doing something to stay caught up with the class, because you're still going to take the same test that everyone else is. Can you come in? Are you from Provost?
What?
Are you from Provost class?
No, I was told to come here from the hall.
What's your name?
Stephanie.
Okay, just sit down real quick, like right there. Anna, raise your hand next to her. All right, so I'm recording and then I will upload it later, so make sure you're watching those. Some of you have been absent multiple days, so make sure you're watching for each day that you're absent. You'll still take the same test as everyone else, all right? You picked up a worksheet on Friday. You probably were not able to complete it, so we only just barely touched the first few problems. So by the end of the lesson today, you should be able to do all the equations. All right, we won't get to inequalities today, but you'll be able to do the equations. So make sure you're doing some each night. You won't be able to finish the whole thing, to do some, because tomorrow we're still having an exit ticket. All right, so you're still being tested tomorrow on this lesson. So you need to have practice, and I'll give you time tomorrow to practice, but 10 or 15 minutes might not be enough time. All right, so make sure you're getting some done each night. If you were absent Friday, probably not today, but sometime this week, do show me your binder because you missed a binder check. So that was last Friday. You can also show me your binder if you were here and you maybe just didn't get full points. Just make sure that you are showing that to me, just not today because it's too short of a day. The only way that people got bad grades on that is if they just refused to take notes. So even if you were absent, you still should be taking notes. They're all in Schoology. All you're doing is copying them over. That should be easy assessment points. Get the notes from a friend or do something, but that is going in the assessment category. Here's the schedule for the testing this week. All right, so we're gonna have an exit ticket tomorrow. Not really worried about that one at all. But Wednesday through Friday, you're working on your topic 1 test. Now here's how it works. On Wednesday, you're taking Form A. That will be on the computer. You'll just be graded on if you're right or if you're wrong. I'm not looking at your scratch work, but I will let you use your notes on that day. All right, so I'll still collect your scratch work, but I won't be looking at it. It's either right or it's wrong, and you can use your notes. I'll put the scores in that day just so you can see how it affects your overall grade. And that's Form A, so you need to finish it on Wednesday. You only get 1 day for it. On Thursday, you will be correcting your Form A in groups. So I'll put you in different groups that you're in right now, and you will work together, look at the ones you got wrong, make sure you understand why you got them wrong. Because on Thursday, you're going to take Form B, which is basically like your retake. All right, it's the same exact test, just different numbers. And that usually shows a lot of growth from Wednesday to Friday. So that's usually the one that I'll put in the grade. I'll look at it and see, which is better of the 2 scores. But on Friday, you won't be able to use your notes. So you will just have to have known from the first 2 days what the test looks like, how to study for it, how to be prepared. You don't get to use your notes Friday, but you are taking it on paper and showing your work so that I can give you points maybe if you got the first first 3 steps, but made a mistake somewhere, I can at least give you credit for the first 3 steps. Any questions? All right, so then take out the page that looks like this. Please scroll back up to the top. And I don't think we wrote down all the steps, did we? Okay, so in that free space, I think you wrote the first 2 steps. Write step 3 or write all the steps if you didn't write it yet. I'll give you a couple minutes to let it take care of something. But write that down, those 3 steps that are on the side in that free space on your note page. It says 1-6 at the top. All right, so also last name Porter, sorry, I don't know your first name. Whatever you're supposed to be working on is in Schoology. All right, so for these steps, first step is to isolate the absolute value bars. All right, so that means these vertical lines, those are our absolute value bars. That's what you need to get by itself, kind of like you would a variable. So get rid of the stuff that's around it, starting with what's farthest away. So what's being done to these absolute value bars in this problem? It's being added by 4. What's opposite of adding 4? So that's what they did over here. They subtracted 4 to get the bars by themselves. All right, that's your goal, is to get the bars by themselves. You're not distributing anything into them. They're not parentheses. All right, you want to get the bars by themselves, so get rid of what's outside of them first. Once you've done that, that is when you split the problem into 2 separate problems. And the way that we split it, the first problem will be just you getting rid of the bars. So x equals 3. The other part will be you getting rid of the bars and making that number negative, whatever number it's equal to. All right, because that's the definition of absolute value. When I'm taking the absolute value of something, I'm just counting how far it is away from 0. So like how far away is 3 from 0? 3, how far away is negative 3 from 0? 3 also. So when I have the absolute value of something equal to 3, there's 2 possibilities for what could go in there. That's why we split it up that way, where 1 is positive and 1 is negative. Does that make sense? All right, and then we solve them separately, meaning get the x by itself. And this one, the x was already by itself, so that's easy there, but you just use your inverse operations to get the x by itself. All right, and then step 3 is just checking your answer by plugging in x. So if I plug in my x equals 3, what did we say the absolute value of 3 is?
3.
And then is 3 plus 4, 7?
Yeah.
So then we have the correct answer, or at least one of the correct answers. Over here, plug in the negative 3. What's the absolute value of negative 3?
3.
And then 3 plus 4, is that 7?
Yeah.
So that we also have the other right answer. Now, I would say 90% of the time, these absolute value equations will have 2 solutions. All right, so this is what it looks like when it has 2 solutions. So just write that in right here where I'm writing. All right, you get 2 solutions there. X equals 3 and x equals negative 3. There are other situations though, because knowing like the number of solutions based on how it looks is part of it. So if you get those absolute value bars by themselves and it equals a positive number, so like x equaling a positive number, then you have 2 solutions. If you get it to where, and I use different letters here, but you can use x also. If you like take the absolute value of something and it equals 0, right? The bars are by themselves. It equals 0. Can 0 be like negative and positive?
No.
No. So in that situation, I just have one solution. So if I get to isolating my bars and I go to split it up and it's equal to 0, really I only have one solution. I can't have a negative 0, if that makes sense. All right, so that's what it looks like when there's one solution. Now, if I have something that I'm taking the absolute value of equal to a negative number, can I ever take the absolute value of something and get a negative? No, these bars make it positive, right?
Yeah.
So if I have these bars by themselves, nothing else around it, and it's equal to a negative number, then I have no solution. All right, you don't continue solving those. One, but no solution. All right, questions there? All right, so then let's fill this out together, and you can use like that top example as your model for like what those in spaces. All right, so looking at that top example, we have the first space that says write the original equation. So that's what I'll write on here. All right, this first line, you write the original equation. Right, so that's what we're given, right? The original equation. What did they do in the next line? They added 3 to both sides. All right, they added 3 to both sides. So remember, now there's more stuff outside these absolute value bars, but we isolate them. Kind of like we do a variable, we want to get rid of what's farthest from them. So would that be the 2 or the 3? The 3. And how do I get rid of a -3? So that's what they did in that line, is add 3 to both sides. Using the top example as your model, what goes in this next line? Simplify. All right, so just clean it up a bit. When I do -3 plus 3, that cancels out. So on the left, I have just 2 times the absolute value of r. And then on the right side, what's 5 plus 3?
8.
8. All right, so there you go. Next step, what did they do? They divided by 2 on each side. So that's what I would write over here. Divide by 2 on both sides. They divided by 2 on both sides. Because you see when the 2 is like squished up against the bar, if there's no symbol there, what is it implied? Multiplication, right? So opposite would be division. All right, so we divided 2 on both sides. Using the top one as your model, what goes on the next slide? Did someone say it? This line is just simplified. The second to last line, yes, because we had to divide 2 on each side. And then we need to simplify, we need to clean it up. So on the left side, we have just the absolute value of r. On the right side, what's 8 divided by 2? 4. So that's what we did, we simplified. And then Jeffrey, what's the last line? Very last one. No, you said it earlier.
The definition of absolute value.
Definition of absolute value is that last line. Definition of absolute value is what that last line is. Because now that we have the bars by themselves, splits into 2, right? When it splits into 2, it's because it's an absolute value problem. All right, there's two possibilities for what can go inside there because of the definition of absolute value. All right, questions? All right, and then they're just showing you that you can substitute your answers into the problem to check them, right? So what if my answers are 4 and -4, then I'm plugging in 4 and -4. All right, so plug that into here. If I put it in the absolute value bars, what's the absolute value of 4? Good, so I have basically 2 times 4, which is what? 8, and then is 8 minus 3, 5? Yes, so that is correct. This is a true answer. Over here, plug in your -4. The absolute value of -4 is what? 4, so then we have 2 times 4 again, which is, and then 8 minus 3 does not equal 5.
Yes.
Then we did it correctly. All right, I know sometimes you guys don't do the last step, which is plugging in, because I know it gets tedious after a while, but for the absolute values, I would probably do that. All right, at least in my head, and especially on a test. Questions there? All right, so let's do a few examples. So example 1A says, what is the value of x in this equation? So look at your absolute value bars. Are they by themselves on one side of the equal sign? They're not by themselves on this one. It has +2. How do I get rid of that +2? Good, so do that on each side. What's 7 minus 2? 5. All right, and then equal to the absolute value of x, those 2's canceled. Now are the bars by themselves? Yes, there's nothing on the outside of them. So from here, what do we do? Your steps. Is there anything on the outside of the bars to divide by? So I do not need to divide in this one. We simplified. Now what do I do? So look back up at the blue steps that I had to write. Once you isolate the absolute value bars, you split the problem. All right, here's how you split it. The first one will be just you getting rid of the bars. Right, so it should be 5 equal to x. How should the second one look? -5 equals to x, right? So that absolute value part should be just what's inside the absolute value. That part doesn't change. So you need to have it equal to the positive and the negative version. Does that make sense? All right, then you would solve for x. That is the x by itself the way it is right now. So then we're done. My answers are x equals 5 and x equals -5. Questions there? All right, that one was a little easy. I don't think I would put that one on a test, just kind of getting you in the habit of using your steps. Let's do the second one, so the B, which looks like something I would actually put on a test because there's more stuff going on inside the absolute value bars. All right, so first step is to isolate the absolute value bars. Are they isolated here? Yes, there's nothing being done on the outside to them. So we can move on to step 2, which is splitting it into 2 separate problems. What should the first problem look like? Two x minus 3. Anything else? Equals 1. So you should just be dropping the bars for the first one. What about the second one? What should that one look like?
2x.
Good. All right, you see that? Any confusion? Question?
Why wouldn't, why is -3 still -3?
Because it was like that in the absolute value bars. All right, so when I say isolate the absolute value bars, I mean get rid of what's outside them. All right, what's inside them will still be there until you get to this step. Does that make sense? All right, any other questions? All right, now from here is where we solve them separately. So just like normal, do I get rid of the 2 first or the 3 first? And I get rid of it by, so do that on each side. Cancels out on the left side. We have 2x equals what? 4. Opposite of multiplying by 2 is, so do that on each side. And what do we get for x? X equals 2. All right, I'm gonna box that up. Am I finished?
No.
No, because we still have to get our other solution. So 90% of the time there's 2 solutions, so you need to find both of them. You'll notice that it is the same steps. You're adding 3 to each side, but the simplifying should be different. Because what's -1 plus 3?
2.
A positive 2, good. And then again, we divide by 2 on each side. And what does x equal for the other one?
1.
Positive or negative?
Positive.
Good. All right, so it's not always that one of your answers is positive and the other is negative. All right, here's an example where they're both positive. And if you plug it in, even in your head, you get 1 as your final answer after you take the absolute value. All right, any questions? All right, we're gonna do the last one that's on, not the last one, but like the one that's on the back side. So when you're finished, flip over to the back side so I know I can move on. Alright, so on the back side, example C. All right, this is also something that I would put on a test because you have to do a couple more things. So first step is to do what?
Put them on different sides.
Good. So you want to isolate the absolute value bars. Does that mean I get rid of the 3 first or the 8 first? The 8. How do I get rid of the 8? Subtract 8 from each side. Now notice that I did not distribute that 3 in there. Why did I not do that? All right, because it's absolute value, it's not parentheses, right? So don't distribute. I see that every year. Don't do it. All right, solve it like you would a variable. Isolate it like you do a variable. All right, on the left, the 8's cancel. I get 3 times the absolute value of x plus 6 equal to what's 5 minus 8? -3. Now, what's being done to the absolute value bars? It's being multiplied by 3. Opposite would be, so do that on each side. On the left, you have the absolute value of x plus 6. On the right, what do you get when you simplify? -1. Now, normally we would split this into 2 separate problems. But is there anything significant about what we did here? About what it equals, maybe? It equals a negative. So we have the bars by themselves and it equals a negative. Will that ever happen? All right, I can never take the absolute value of something and get a negative. So what does that mean for my answer? There's no solution. All right, so once you get the bars by themselves, if you notice that it equals a negative, there's going to be no solution. All right, and you can write this over here if you want. But the absolute value bars, will never equal a negative. All right, if you see that, they're trying to trick you, it's no solution. All right, questions? All right, you have a U try on page 24 of your workbook. It's going to be example 1, 2 parts A, B, and C. So kind of like the ones we did together, but now in your workbook on page 24.